Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming in and listening to me on this topic. I think it's a pretty important topic. Cloud access security broker, or as Gartner calls it, a cloud access broker. The word access, I think, is a misnomer because it's not about identity and access management. It is a control that you put in your network to extend those controls out to SaaS apps, and that's what we'll talk about. My name is Ken Dickey. I'm an AVP at Cadre Information Security, based out of Cincinnati. We have local people here, and I do these presentations at local ISA chapters throughout our territories. You know, I'm a big believer in supporting the community, and thank you for having me. So CASB came about there around about 2012. First features started showing up on the market, and you know, as we'll see here, we're gonna talk about the evolution of CASB as it came up through the years. So, you know, we're all familiar with the traditional security model that we've all spent our careers implementing and maintaining. We have our data center, regional offices, and a security stack that consists of many controls that we implement into our network to make sure we know what's going on and can control bad things and stop malicious behaviors and activities from happening. All the way from next-gen firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, secure web gateways or proxies. Everybody remember proxies? Still very important. Email gateways, malware sandboxes, and of course DLP solutions. So the standard traditional security model has exploded, and the edge of your network just no longer exists these days. So the next thing to come up was basically infrastructure as a service, where your applications and other back office functions are being run in an infrastructure as a service provider. There was a slow ramp up to trusting these organizations. It's basically running your stuff on somebody else's computer. But you were able to implement the same types of controls you had in the traditional model in the infrastructure as a service providers. They had virtual versions of firewalls, IDS, IPSs. All of the controls that you had in corporate, you could now extend to an infrastructure as a service provider. And trust started coming up for these solutions through various regulatory bodies who take a deep look at how these organizations are running their business to give you a level of assurance that the security controls that you would expect be run in these infrastructure as a service providers were being adhered to. So it's very important that these governing bodies actually certify these infrastructure as a service companies. It really doesn't have much to do with CASB. So the need for CASB came about as SaaS applications, software as a service, came into play. Because here you are, you're no longer running these applications in an infrastructure that you control, whether it be local, on-prem, or in an infrastructure as a service provider. These are applications that somebody else is maintaining. They're in charge of version control. They're in charge of all the things that you're traditionally in charge of taking care of. And you know, this number keeps growing. Even from the first time I presented, it was at 15,000. And the latest cloud report came out from Nexco, who we partnered with, and we're up to 22,000 different apps. You know, and I took a look at just a brief LinkedIn article about the number of marketing startups that are just being funded in Israel alone. There's 120 different marketing startups that are coming out of Israel alone. That doesn't account for what's going on here. So what's up with these apps? Most of them are put together very quickly using agile development practices, and they are brought to market as quickly as possible so that those organizations can monetize their investments. And so one thing a CASB provider does for you is they actually look at how ready that organization is to house your data. And when you look at the various line of business applications, you can see that with very, very few exceptions, until you get to the storage area, they really haven't caught up to modern day enterprise-ready applications. So, you know, that really does pose a risk, because while your organization may sanction select few SaaS applications for your users to use, you're all familiar with Microsoft's strong-arming tactics right now to get you to use Office 365. You know, those moves, those calculated moves, are only a small percentage of the applications that are actually used within an organization. And so most CASB vendors will provide a free discovery service to help sell their product, of course, but during that discovery service, they're averaging close to 1,000 applications that are discovered within an organization. And an early adopters of CASB has been highly regulated organizations, large financial institutions, insurers, medical device providers. I was at the RSA conference this year, and it was a Rock the Casbah session. And, you know, the 4 CIOs that were on the panel talked specifically about discovering the business-led apps that they didn't know about, but more importantly, the unsanctioned user-led applications. So it's very important to understand exactly what's going on in your network. And it extends beyond what your firewall logs and your proxy logs are telling you. So it sort of leads into the risk. You know, what's the risk of allowing all these unsanctioned apps to run within your organization? And the answer is it's very risky. So the latest cloud report came up with a few tidbits, and pardon the FUD here, but I got to include a little bit of it. So on average, there's 26 pieces of cloud malware in the enterprise. And these numbers come from real discovery processes, real discovery cycles within organizations who have signed up for them. And 55.9% of malware infected files are actually shared with others, either within the organization or publicly to external users. Both of which are bad. So huge amount of risk there. And you know, they looked at the probability of a data breach when you introduce SaaS applications, and they came up with a number that's 3 times more likely to have a data breach. And the last amount, a little bit of FUD here, is that 62.3% of cloud apps that don't have terms and conditions that do not specify that the customer owns the data. Most of these cloud apps consider the data you put in their application to be theirs. And you know, you're fine as long as you're paying the service and the subscription for that. But what happens when you terminate services of that manufacturer? So, you know, I really want to get through these 5 slides. You know, it's tough to encapsulate the thoughts behind the 5 steps, the 5 strategies that you should adopt in order to bring SaaS apps under control. And one is you have to have credibility with your peers. You have to have a discovery process that allows you to quantify exactly what is happening within your organization. Not only with users within the confines of the perimeter, but your remote workforce out there. You have to be able to articulate the challenges and gain buy-in by having the knowledge up front that these things are happening right now. They pose a huge risk to the organization, and it'll actually give you some credibility with the line of business owners and C-level executives. So, you know, and knowing the enterprise readiness of those is another value that the CASB products offer. So, what goes into determining whether or not an application is enterprise ready? Well, most of them look at and present to you general information about the application, how long they've been around, where they're headquartered, where are their data centers, where do they host that data? Because with the privacy laws coming into play, you need to be very aware as to where that data is being stored. You know, how long have they been registered, whether they're public or private, all the way down to what regulations or compliance regulations they've achieved within the organization, and all the way down to AAA features, like whether or not they offer restriction of access by IP address, or supporting multi-factor authentication, or single sign-on through ADFS and other means. And of course, how do they treat their data? You know, whether or not they encrypt their data at rest. Even if they do encrypt their data at rest, they own the keys. You don't own those keys. So, you know, you have to know whether or not you need to think about encrypting the data before it even gets up there. And of course, SSL hygiene, making sure that they have strong ciphers in place and that they're not vulnerable to the latest attacks. So all of those risk factors go into deciding whether or not a SaaS app is enterprise ready. So the second strategy is understanding the role of the cloud within an organization. The days of denying access to things you're not aware of are over, you know, because companies are realizing that they can increase their top line growth by implementing agile development cycles and making sure that more thorough testing and increasing their competitive advantage. There's cost savings involved. They can spin up as much infrastructure as they need to roll something out with pay-as-you-go models, and of course a lower barrier for entry. So companies and lines of business are looking to the cloud, and it's a good strategy. It's amazing how quickly things are moving. So the third strategy, the third thing you should make sure you're in front of is collaborating with the heads of those lines of business. Making sure that you're involved in those meetings where these things are discussed. You know, these peers have to be your champions, and they have to ultimately have your back if things go sideways, because things always go sideways, right? So your vision should align pretty closely with what they're doing and what their strategy is, but you have to know their strategy in order to do that. And it should be staged, and you should overestimate the investment needed to get there. Your first few SaaS applications is the learning curve for you, because you haven't done it yet. It's something you need to build a learning curve and learn your lessons over time. And then consider how you're going to deal with shadow IT. Those unauthorized apps that your users are using because they think it's an easier way to get things done, or malicious activity, but you have to have policies around how to deal with the unsanctioned applications. And then the fourth is to actually implement safe cloud enablement. And this can be done by traditional methods. First, you have to discover what's out there. You have to know what's out there before you can make good decisions on how to control that stuff. You have to find out how many cloud apps are running and how users are using it. being able to drill down into risky usage of that sensitive data. You know, you can have a high-risk application that's okay to use because the data going into it is very low risk, you know, like brochureware and a marketing app, you know, something that really doesn't have that much value to malicious users. And by the same token, you can have a very secure app that is enterprise ready that still poses some risk, and you need some controls around DLP and encryption and tokenization. And being able to get to where you can have granular control and say, yes, you can use that app, but sorry, we're not going to let you upload things to it, or we're not going to let you download from it. So having a granular control over those applications. Oops. There we go. And then you got to tie it all up and above. You got to basically have a strategic roadmap so that you can consistently evaluate new SaaS apps that are brought to your attention by those line of business owners who you have relationships with, and be able to very quickly establish the risk involved so that they can ascertain the risk involved in working with that SaaS application, and feeling and creating a sense of co-ownership, so that you know, there's never a battle behind it, because there's usually a good business case behind usage of a lot of these apps. And you know what? When things go right, make sure you praise these guys and heap on the praise, and make sure that their success and the success of their project is tied to your success. So if they win, the business wins, and you all will have made it happen through very good planning. So let's take a look at a few of these cases here, the requirements and how to solve them, because CASB, as you'll see coming up, encompasses a wide range of features and a wide range of controls. So it starts at the basics here, basically discovering what's out there. And you can do that through various means, some more granular than others, but it's very important that you get a deep understanding of what's going on in the cloud, what's being used, even identifying duplicate usage. I mean, the line of business might have a marketing app that they want everybody to use, but everybody's saying, hey, this one works better, I'd rather use that. So you have to make sure you can make the line of business folks aware of overlapping applications that are being used. And, you know, finding those redundant apps and assess the risk, you know, making sure you look at those risk factors behind the SaaS app that you're adopting to make sure that you can provide that input back to the security and compliance folks. Second is, of course, to safely enable those sanctioned apps. You know, you need to have apply the same governance and risk and compliance rules that you've formulated for your business to these applications. So that requires granular visibility and the ability to discover new apps as they come up and block ways to route around them, and detect and remediate things such as malware. You know, that's a feature that select few CASB vendors have, is the ability to apply threat intelligence to the data it sees. And also utilizing machine learning-based anomaly detection. You know, user behavioral analysis and network behavioral analysis is the new thing that everybody is looking at. And you want to make sure that you can implement that within your CASB solution.
I'm sorry, is there a Dave Woodsey? Dave?
Go, Dave. And also making sure that you can integrate that solution with your existing security tools. So, I mean, in this example, you know, Bob in accounting, he's uploading some customer data to OneDrive. It's a sanctioned app. Well, oh, no, it might not be a sanctioned app. Those are the sanctioned apps. So he's going to OneDrive, but he's doing it from his mobile phone. You which isn't a compliance type of activity. So those are the things you can discover within a CASB solution. So the last requirement is around consistent, granular governance for all the apps that you've sanctioned, as well as the shadow IT apps. So again, being able to discover what's being used, being able to identify the shadow IT, and gain control over them, and having visibility and control access to all the cloud apps, and making sure you can do it from any device, whether they're within the perimeter of your network or outside the perimeter as a mobile workforce. Making sure you can identify and stop data loss. DLP solutions should be able to be integrated with your CASB solution, either via a cloud-based offering or in tandem with your on-prem DLP, network DLP solution. And making sure that you can show compliance to those auditors who are inevitably going to come around and ask about how that app is being used. So this is the part I like, because I came up as an engineer. I've deployed firewalls and proxies and other controls throughout my career. So where does it fall within these quasi-OSI model here? Layer 4 and below, you got your old firewalls, IPSs, and UTMs. Those days are long gone. Today you have next-gen firewalls and web proxies. As you'll see later, those next-gen firewall and web proxy manufacturers are very quickly gobbling up CASB startups because they realize that they have the technology and inner workings within them to serve some of the same functions. And some of these functions do overlap, as far as identifying applications. One popular next-gen firewall out there is all about app control. Their claim to fame is their app ID engine, and they do it very efficiently. But they've probably never expected the number of SaaS apps out there to expand beyond tens of thousands. So with CASB, you're able to look at the app layer and above. So you're able to see the activity that's going on. You're able to see the data that's being stored within those CASB, within those SaaS applications, and allowing for control and safe enablement. So let's take this a step further. This is an example that I like because, in the old world, you get this level of information out of your proxy or firewall logs. You've got a web session that started. You can see the person log in. You can see where from and the browser they're using. You can see where they're going. You can see what type of HTTP operation they're doing. You might be able to look into the headers and perhaps the post body itself and do a little filtering. And your SIM presents you with this information. With a CASB device, you get a much more richer feel and feedback from this same session. So we can see that, yes, Mary logged in, but she used her Gmail account as her box ID, and she's logging in from a MacBook, which isn't a sanctioned device. And the box site she's going to, the data is actually going into Germany, and that might be a violation right there. And by the way, she's sharing it with a guy named John from Nuco, who's probably a competitor. So, and within there, at the application layer, you can see that it's cloud storage, and it gives you a risk rating. And those risk ratings are used to help you in alerting and making you aware of anomalous behavior. And on top of that, you can see all of the activity done within the application because the CASB provider has very detailed information on exactly the operations that can be performed within a SaaS app. And the data itself, you can determine whether it's sensitive data, PII, PCI, or PHI, and other classifications. So the summary you get, perhaps sent to your SIM or whatever dashboard you'd like is much more rich than you'd get out of a traditional firewall proxy. So I want to go a little deeper into deployment options, because that's where I live. That's where I like to live, at least. At the far left, you can gain some visibility by pulling your information from your web and proxy and firewall logs. Some CASB, most CASB vendors can run in this mode. They can plug into a port mirror or tap loop and preferably decrypted screen and give you the discovery basics, basic activity. How risky is it? Because they know the destinations that you're going, and they can assign some a risk level to it. So you go from there to the API connector. And the API connector itself, most of these SaaS apps have various levels of API functions. And the more mature SaaS apps have a rich API that allows you to see exactly what's going on, see what's been stored, see the activity level of each user, see where they've logged in from, and all this rich set of data. So the more mature the CASB application is, the better, because they have tied into and documented and built into the product the APIs for these SaaS apps and can give you a single dashboard, very fine layered granularity audit capabilities of what's going on within that SaaS app. So they use the API connector. They might even use the admin user for that particular SaaS app, so that they can actually do near real-time visibility into what's going on. Because again, this is on someone else's computer, so in order to see what's going on beyond the boundaries of your network, you need a connector into that application. So the API and the reverse proxy are the two deployment methods that are most commonly used for sanctioned applications. So you'll find your CASB vendors have specific connectors into a variety of the most popular SaaS apps, Office 365, ServiceNow, and others. And that's the realm with which the API connector and the reverse proxy comes into play. Because in the reverse proxy, and we'll see it on the next slide, it's better illustrated, but the reverse proxy and API connector, especially when they're used in conjunction, in tandem with each other, gives you a very rich data set of what's going on. And then the forward proxy deployment method is to control unsanctioned applications. Your next-gen firewall and your current web proxies, they have the ability to do that. They have limited application sets, but they're very rapidly building in the CASB dictionary, I'll call it, for lack of a better term, of applications that are out there. But with the forward proxy, you're able to deploy it to your remote users and make sure that you can control that mobile workforce. And as well as, and we'll see that later. But the four specific forward proxy methods are using a pack file for explicit proxy proxy chaining from your existing proxy technologies. If you have a Blue Coat, you can chain to it. Although I'll tell you now, Blue Coat's catching up on the CASB field. And using DNS. Through DNS, you can point clients to specific IPs, or deploying a mobile agent to actually perform the same functions when they're outside of the network. So all the way from visibility to governance of sanctioned apps to full control of both sanctioned and unsanctioned apps. So this just illustrates the previous slide. In the example number one in a forward proxy deployment, you're basically allowed real-time visibility and policy control, because you can stop these sessions as you see them happening, for on-prem users accessing all cloud apps. And then use case for number 2 is your mobile workforce. Real-time visibility, being able to determine what they're up to and what cloud apps they're accessing when they're at home and not at work, and being able to apply the same controls. The third example is a reverse proxy, real-time visibility and policy control for either outside partners or using IT-owned apps and for sanctioned applications. And then number 4, combine that API connector, getting that real-time visibility in the sanctioned apps. Any questions on deployment methods? I know it's might be opening up a Pandora's box here, but this is what a lot of people need to keep in mind when they're talking to a CASB vendor, so that you can know in your mind exactly what features they can offer you based on their deployment methods. So another important, very important feature that has evolved with the more mature CASB solutions out there is the ability to integrate to your existing controls. Nothing's more important than that. You don't need a control that you need to reinvent the wheel with. You should be able to leverage your existing controls and have that CASB solution work in conjunction with. You know, the automated integration to web proxies and firewalls isn't there yet. They're not going to log into an API and automatically create a rule. But that feature's coming. You can bet your bottom dollar that feature's coming. But for now, when you have visibility, you can at least use that visibility, that dashboard, into all of your applications and use it to create policies on your proxies and firewalls. It should integrate easily with your SIM so that that SIM can take that data and incorporate it into all of the other data streams that are coming in and allow for a good security intelligence framework. SSL is integral to the product. You really wouldn't want to deploy a SaaS app and have to manually manage all of those usernames and passwords. It should be integrated into your in-house user store using Active Directory links or ADFS or federated identity management. Should also integrate with your DLP. A lot of cloud providers or cloud-based CASB providers have a level of DLP, but it should be validated by your internal DLP tools, because you've spent all this time, money, and effort in setting your policies around DLP. When you implement it in the cloud, you're simply extending those same controls and policies that you've already established internally. But you can pull suspected violations and then send them on via ICAP to your internal DLP solution and have them do a scanning and have the final say as to whether it's a violation. And coach the users on violations. And threat prevention, being able to use those threat intelligence feeds, you know, whether that be your own threat intelligence feed or trust the CASB provider to pull in enough feeds from various sources to where they have a rich data set so that you can block the known malicious stuff that's out there. And also, you can't forget about your mobile workforce. You have to be able to control what's going on in that mobile workforce. Being able to automatically deploy applications into the user store in the MDM, automatically distributing mobile profiles, and being able to deploy a mobile agent. A lot of CASB providers don't have mobile agents. You should look for one that has a mobile agent. And so I think we're just about out of time here. I just wanted to sort of recap some of the market activity that's going to go on, just to illustrate how quickly things are moving. So, you know, Skyfence, Netscope, some of these other players, again, started coming on board around 2012. Very quickly, other manufacturers determined that, hey, we need to get in this game. So Imperva was one of the first to see that. They bought Skyfence. They've been running with that ever since. It's a great product. Akamai pumped money into fire layers, who you'll see later on, Checkpoint started using to help enrich their CASB capabilities. HP entered into a reseller agreement with Adalom, and then Adalom got gobbled up by Microsoft, you know, not 5 months later. Palo Alto Networks, they acquired CirroSecure. That's now the Aperture product. So PAM's Aperture product was a result of the CirroSecure acquisition. Blue Coat did 2 acquisitions. They bought Perspexus and noticed, oh gee, it's not fully functional. So later on they also bought Elastica to help provide the proxy technologies that are required to incorporate CASB into a proxy. And you'll find Blue Coat, Checkpoint, PAN, and others are all rapidly trying to catch up to the Netscopes and Sky-High networks. And it goes on and on and on. So IBM developed their own in true IBM fashion. Cisco announced in their Cisco Live, they bought CloudLock, which was one of the last holdouts. And then just yesterday, Oracle announced they are buying Polera. But we all saw that writing on the wall because Polera was started by ex-Oracle executives. So that's all I've got. I wanted to try to keep it within 45, 50 minutes here. But one thing I'd like to ask, and it's amazing the results I get, is there anybody out there who's actually implemented some level of CASB technology in the network? Anybody at all? That's the exact reaction. This is the 3rd ISA chapter. I've had no hands raised. So you'll find that CASB vendors are out visiting C-level executives, folks like me. I'm now a product guy. I used to be an engineer, but I am trying to build not interest in the product, but pointing out the need for this product set within your product. So, you know, as budget cycles come into play, you might want to consider CASB type solution. Any questions? All right, then. Well, I thank you very much for your time. I hope the rest of the day is productive for you. And thank you.